Thank you. We really appreciate the presentation, and it's great to see AT&T's progress with 5G deployments and all that. But it also means that your 5G RANs today are based on closed, vertically integrated solutions, because that's kind of what's available in the market today, and we all understand. So by the time O-RAN-based solutions are ready for commercialization, where do you expect O-RAN implementations to have the first real impact with AT&T or with other operators?
Well, I think it's first really important to establish the notion that O-RAN architecture, or the specification, or the openness is not one thing. Different capabilities and different openness and different specification will show up in different times. And we all need to understand that and follow that. I think, as I mentioned, I think one area where we think that there's more maturity is the open front end, which is definitely something that we've already participating and deploying in our 5G network. So assume that you will see our involvement following the specification and the evolution of the openness and the standards that allows us to go and deploy this. So again, and where we think it's not yet fully baked or fully mature, like, for example, the E2 and the RIC, these are places we are participating, we are contributing code, we are doing trial on our commercial network to make sure that the principles are working. We are participating in the right communities because we also want to make sure that we drive the notion that an XApp, no matter where it's developed, can work on different implementations seamlessly. That extensibility of the capabilities is extremely important.
Good, thank you. So Tareq, you mentioned, well, two things, your need and your vision for automation, but also I think you said you have over 180 VNFs, if I got that right, today. So I'm curious, where you are in the journey around CI/CD and the ability to verify changes that get deployed and maybe do automated rollback, all critical foundational kind of functionality needed for automation. Where is Rakuten now on that journey?
Actually, that's a very good question, because I should explain a little bit also what we have done in embracing an idea that I wanted to change quite a bit from the early days. If you think about how software gets introduced today in any telco in the world, including, by the way, my previous role that I've done in Reliance Geo, the process always starts by a vendor giving you release notes, sending you through FTP files and say, here's my files, you go through it. So, a noble concept comes and says, well, look, if you're building a cloud network, why not create the lab of the cloud, if you will? If I take my complete CI/CD environment in my lab, I have a very nice portal in which my lab and my partner labs gets integrated through common tool chains, where the minute that they finish their CI/CD, I don't want to see something called FTP, to be honest with you. Automatically, it gets deposited on my Artifactory. I see that appear saying, hey, notification, there's a new release, a new binary ready for consumption. And then from that point on, it passes from their CI/CD tool chain into my own internal tool chain. So I would say, I'm not 100% where I want to be. I am really close, really close to getting that done. I focus 1,000% of my energy on mastering the radio, because I feel that this is the most amount of distributed elements that exist in the network. So if you see the CI/CD process that I have for the radio, and why I get so excited to talk about Open RAN in general, it's not just about disaggregation. It's just what happens when all of a sudden today in 4G, I have a VM. By the way, my 5G software is 100% completely microservices, cloud native, containerized, with complete disaggregation. Even the CU itself, we have a CU for user plane and CU for control plane, and the DU also got disaggregated into a bunch of microservices. So I think I focus on the RAN because, if you look at the 5G software releases that I do every single day, I don't want to stop. I mean, if there's something that is really impactful and bring benefit to a user, why do I need to study or put something like 6 months of studying a software release before I'm able to consume it, adopt it in the network, and deploy it in a way that does not negatively impact the network? I think I'm close. Lots of things that we still need to address, but at least I have the right framework. And for radio, I think I'm 90%. For the other elements, I'm about 60% completed.
Hmm. Yeah, no, it's going to be quite a journey because we're trying to open up all this functionality, but at the same time, automate and speed up the deployment of these capabilities and functionality. So, Oz, along those lines, maybe could you share with us some interesting or novel use cases for these XApps that people are talking about? What kinds of things and capabilities might we expect to see initially, and then what's maybe a little further down the road?
So the initial set of XApps are going to be more policy-driven and SON applications. But moving forward, we are going to see XApps going more into the real control at a time scale that is similar to how the mobile network actually changes. So one of the use cases that we are talking within ORAN is traffic steering, for example. And when you think of the notion of traffic steering in the context of a fully disaggregated RAN, the description is actually very, very different in the sense that the traffic is going through some microservices, and then it is going through a mobile link. So the entire route is being steered based on quality of experience, based on the usage, the user distribution on the network, etc. So along those lines, we are going to see a variety of XApps that strive to strike the balance between spectrum optimization and quality of experience maintenance. But a really interesting aspect is once you actually softwareize the control of the RAN, is that with all of these new business verticals that we're talking about, imagine an enterprise offering. Now, for an enterprise private network, the types of end devices are going to be dramatically different. Their mobility patterns are going to be dramatically different. The environment is going to be most likely indoors and very different, and the frequencies we use are going to be different. So that effectively means the types of network optimization applications that you think for an enterprise will end up actually being quite a bit different than a macro cell environment. And the disaggregation and the softwareization will allow us to optimize these XApps based on these verticals as well.
Good, thank you. So Igal, we've seen a number of announcements across the industry recently, various telcos collaborating with hyperscalers on 5G edge deployments. And I believe you mentioned you're doing something with Azure, or you announced something with Azure. So where do you think this is headed, and where do you think the line's going to be drawn between the telco and the cloud operators?
It's a good question, Timon. So as I said, first of all, the collaboration is there. And when you think about edge and developing a real-time network that can support immersive use cases in a pick a number, 20, 30 milliseconds, you need to be able to converge compute, storage, and networking. We're always going to be responsible for the networking side. The ability for cloud provider to scale compute in a way that the developer feel comfortable with is greater. And to bring those capabilities together is what makes it so appealing to the developer of the future perspective. So whether the line's going to blur over time and where else can we leverage public cloud, I think, if if you can just follow what some of them have done in terms of acquisition and where they want to get into the marketplace, it makes full sense for us to look around and see what are the areas where we can leverage that scale. But at this point of time, again, I think there's a that converges in important where we bring the 5G, we bring the user plane, we bring the networking, and that converge with that compute, storage, and developer interface that brings that complete solution together.
Good, thank you. So, so Tareq, with in your view, does Open RAN have to have feature parity with the incumbent vendors or other solutions in order to get traction with you? Or
I said this is my favorite question, and I have a little bit of opinion about this, so allow me. So when I was in India, I think one of the question someone asked me, what is the the things I've learned in India, and what's the difference between Reliance Jio and Rakuten and so on. So look, when I was in the US, I really thought that I was highly innovative. I thought I know quite a bit until I head to India. And an ARPU of $1 changes your mind dramatically. I mean, how do you source an equipment that costs whatever $20,000 per sector and make a living out of it? So you can't. And so I learned an interesting definition. You might think that this might not make sense in mature countries like United States, Korea, China, Europe. But I learned in India something says good enough, and good enough means if you go and survey quite a bit of the engineers, whether it's on the radio side, and you say, out of all these feature sets that you have asked for, could be hundreds and thousands of them, how much do you actually use in your network? And what's the relative benefits to them? Because I started to understand the impact of the man-hour requirement to develop and put a feature versus the efficiency gain. Let's assume that you get something that increases efficiency by 1 to 2%. Is it really worth the energy and effort? So to answer your question, I looked at Japan and I said, Japan is a quality obsessed country. I mean, let me tell you, if I drop a call in Japan, I have seen customers tweeting and going into public forums and complaining about things I would never seen in the United States or other parts of the world that I worked in. And, so my objective was simple. Can I absolutely guarantee a level of reliability in terms of drop call that's world-class? Well, yes, I could. Is my spectral efficiency where it needs to be to meet the capacity? Yes, I could. But do I have the necessity to have every single feature parity? And my opinion, that maybe large OEMs have? I don't believe so. I just think that you need to assess as a leader what is important to your organization and your customers. And against that, tailor suit your requirement to what you need. And so, look, I mean, I advise everybody to say, look, I understand in telecom, we have many challenges, but I always look at different industry to learn from. I learned from, honestly, quite a bit I've learned from web scale companies. I want to learn their thinking, their mentality, their thought structure, because it's quite different. And this is where I learned good enough. Good enough for what I want. I write the code base to what I need. And all these additional, like for example, you look at, I mentioned in my journey into Facebook, I learned that they wrote their own PGP IP routing protocol. And when I asked the guy, why did you do it? He goes, man, this old legacy protocols that were done are too complex. I don't need all of this stuff. I just need something very simple to work. So I know we have specific requirements in the telco side that makes it more demanding, if you will, but I also think that this definition of good enough, each organization will have to assess carefully their requirement and what's important to them and their customer, because that's what really matters at the end of the day, isn't it? Is about the customer experience.
All right, thank you so much. And we're out of time now. We actually run a little bit over, so I want to thank you all for sticking with us, and our audience as well has largely stuck with us too, even running a touch over. Great session today. Tareq, Igal, Oguz, thank you all so very much. Really appreciate you being here. I want to also thank our sponsors and our entire community. Really exciting area. It's really exciting to see this open transformation really starting to gain momentum in the RAN space. And with that, Denise, back to you.